We will now hear our second guest speaker on the proposition side of the motion. Will Self is an author. Indeed, he has rewritten a version of The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is available to buy, not here in this building, but in all good bookstores. And we welcome Will Self to the floor. Will Self.
Writer.
Sorry, not author. He was very clear he's not an author. That's a horrible Americanism. He is a writer.
Author, with his little leather elbow patches. The author came among us with his beautifully tooled penis. You didn't come out tonight to abstain from the motion, right? So you didn't come out to do that, so just forget that, right, immediately. Agreed? Going out to abstain and to debate, what would that be like? That would be like going out all night to drink non-alcoholic cocktails and then masturbate under the unsit-downable bench in the bus shelter. You're not going to be doing that. So, right, it's this little clever bit of wording, you know, who would this house prefers to be reading, okay? What's this meant to draw you to your finer side of your intellect and your nature to take that proposition seriously? Well, fair enough, you can if you like. But that's not the way I want to approach it. This is Orwell versus Wilde. Got it? Orwell, Wilde. That's it. I come before you. I've got a difficult T. I've got a sticky wicket, sort of thing Orwell might say. Arch Englishman that he is. And I think there is a political dimension to this. And I think TJ from Magdalen unfortunately slid over to my side of the floor. Because the truth of the matter is that Orwell was a closet ethno-nationalist. And of course Wilde comes from John Bull's Other Island. And I come, unfortunately, from another place, which Wilde also came from, where he won the Newdigate Prize for poetry. That's not reciting poetry nude, standing on a gate. It just happens to be called that. But it's a neat little portfolio, not a joke you can imagine Orwell making. It's been pointed out how humorless he was. Other people have wanted to opine about how kind of tough he was, his amazing journalism, the road to Wigan Pier. I come not to bury Caesar, but nor do I come to praise him. Every day he got up in his opulent suite in the Great Midland Hotel in Manchester and went across to Wigan on the train to report. Just as when he was down and out in Paris, he'd pop round the corner to his aunts, who happened coincidentally to be living nearby, for a slap-up feed. I don't want to impugn Orwell's honour. This was, after all, a man who dobbed 500 of his fellow travelling socialists into MI5 on his deathbed. So, who needs to impugn him? I've enjoyed reading a lot of George Orwell. I've read a great deal of it. I suspect partly I was asked to participate in this debate. These are my notes, by the way. I'm not going to tell you what I was doing with them earlier. I suspect I was asked to do this debate because I once gave a talk for the BBC in which I described, I was quoting G.K. Chesterton, who said, of the English, that's you, at least putatively, when you got up this morning and put on your little English horror mask and came out for the day. Chesterton said the English love a talented mediocrity. And I said that Orwell, while himself far from being a mediocrity, he was a brilliant writer, amazingly good writer. Short on laughs, though. Good writer, though. But the English have made of him their talented mediocrity. Why is he on so many syllabuses? What is it that so appeals to the English about Orwell? So my argument is, if you like, an argument about phenomenology. It's an argument about what the English have made of Orwell, not what Orwell really is. The English want Orwell in a certain way. Remember, Orwell is somebody, thank you, I'm grateful for that interruption. I'm actually speaking to her now on the phone. She's standing out in the lobby going, what the fuck? Where was I?
What English people make out of Orwell.
Yes, what English people make out of Orwell. They always say how lucid he is. They understand him perfectly, every single word. The English people who really love Orwell are usually of the, I don't really know much about art, but I know what I like school of persuasion. They're defiantly anti-literary. They're substance over style, which is a meaningless proposition. As my champion would say, or he who I champion, only shallow people won't judge by appearances. So they make of him the dullard they wish for. Why is Animal Farm on all the syllabuses? Because it's written in simple subject, object, predicate sentences. Yeah. It's as simple as that. And the banging on about how 1984 has come true. Really? You've noticed, he wasn't here 1984, 1948. Duh. All those things happened in Soviet Russia, under Stalin, under the terror. You get that? It's a lot more prosaic than that. He doesn't really anticipate everything that's happening to us. And anyway, why does the capacity of a seer obtain to somebody you wish to champion, or somebody you wish, why don't you pitch it for Nostradamus, or, Tiresias, or, Cassandra? They're the people you should be in the ring for. But it's a hard furrow to plough this in the sodden East Anglian fenland. I once lived in East Anglia. It was back in the days before Tinder, obviously. I wouldn't have gone beyond a mobile phone signal, or Grindr for that matter. But there I was, and every single personal ad in the paper said GSOH after it. I was living near Ipswich. I said to the guy living next to me, what does GSOH stand for? He said, good sense of humour. Because nobody in East Anglia has a sense of humour, so we're desperately looking for a partner who does, And we're only 40 miles from the source of the river from which Eric Blair took his nom de plume. I'm in Roundhead territory here, so I want you to support the underdog. Whereas Wilde, again, as the able supplementary speakers made clear, and I don't mean to be at all dismissive, I'm supportive of my proposer Scarlett, but I don't think of Wilde as necessarily a great humanitarian. I don't want to recast him as some hero of gay liberation. It was said on the night of Wilde's conviction for gross indecency that 500 single gentlemen left for the continent. In fact, I think Wilde turned back the cause of gay rights in this country by 50 years. I think he was insufferably arrogant and conceited and thought he knew better, and that's why I love him. I love it that he stuck it to the English and that his plays were playing across the West End on the night that he went down. And yes, I love what one of the other supplementary speakers said from from Maudlin and said about the amazing emotional arc of his work, going in De Profundis to this profound and bitter realization of the nature of human being. I'm with him every time. I feel him. I once went, not on a pilgrimage, yes it was, because I was crawling and naked, to his tomb in Père Lachaise, and I arrived and there was a rather adipose Scotswoman there, wearing a stretchy black material I believe is called lycra. And she was sort of embracing the Epstein statue that forms the capstone of Wilde's tomb with its sphinxes at the corner, embracing it and kissing it, and the tomb was covered with lipstick bows. Not something you can say of Orwell. Orwell, who's co-opted by no other than the greatest English dweeb of all time, John Major, a man who looked like he'd swallowed his own moustache, who cited Orwell's lines about Englishness, beer, spinsters cycling to evensong, the sound of leather on willow, when some paedophile is getting down to it in the cricket shed. That this imagery could be co-opted by right, by left. It's part of, at this point in history, surely we've had enough of the English performative act, and we have to vote down Wilde, because he's involved in that. We have to vote down Orwell, because he's involved in that shtick. He's involved in promoting. It's not personal, Eric. I always refer to him as Eric. Thank you. It's very pretty. We need everybody to go out. I said to the Scotsman, the adipose Scotswoman wearing lycra, I said, which one of Wilde's works do you like? And she said, well, I've never actually read him. I just like the idea of him. And I excoriated that Scotswoman. I whipped her with my tongue. Vile, vile lycra-wearing Scotswoman, I said. You are not fit. But in retrospect, she was right. As Nietzsche said, to get up in the morning in the fullness of youth and open a book, that's what I call vicious. So don't read Wilde, and certainly don't read Orwell, but be wild.